Okay, this is chapter 6.6, Properties of Kites and Trapezoids. So we're going to scroll down to this first. And this is what we had kind of looked at before. I don't want to do too much review because I don't want to make this video too long for you guys. But if we have a quadrilateral, the types that we looked at so far is parallelograms. And so those had two pairs of parallel sides. We had 4 different things we learned about them. And then we went into rectangle, which we said they all had right angles and the diagonals were congruent. And then rhombus, we said all 4 sides were the same. The diagonals crossed at 90 degrees and it also bisected those angles. We said a square is basically all of the attributes of the rectangle and the rhombus. So that's kind of what we had looked at before, was all of this area. But some quadrilaterals, 4-sided shapes, don't have 2 parallel sides. And so we're going to look at those. If it has 1 set of parallel sides, it's called a trapezoid. You can see here 2 sets of parallel and then they're connected. If these sides right here are the same length, then it's called an isosceles trapezoid. So kind of like an isosceles triangle with the head cut off. So that's a trapezoid and an isosceles trapezoid. And then if there's no parallel sides at all, it's a kite. And it honestly just looks like a kite, like the thing you fly in the air. But it is a geometry shape. And it shows these 2 sides are the same and those 2. It's almost like if you cut it in half, you have 2 isosceles triangles on top of each other. So we're going to look at some attributes of trapezoids and kites. So back to the top. So the first one is for a couple of vocab, trapezoid. They call these guys the legs because they're like holding on the top base and the bottom base. So the legs are right here and then the base, and then they call the angles, these 2 are called base angles, and then these 2. So all of the angles are really base angles. An isosceles trapezoid, again, we said these 2 legs are the same. So the first rule is in an isosceles trapezoid, these base angles are congruent, and these base angles are congruent. So think of it like an isosceles trapezoid. We know the bottom 2 are the same, and then if you cut off the top of the triangle, then these 2 are also the same. The other thing about isosceles trapezoids specifically is same thing as rectangles. These diagonals are congruent. So if one is 12, the other is 12. So if AC is 50, then BD is also 50. So that's specifically about an isosceles trapezoid. Now, all trapezoids in general, whether they're isosceles or not, have this in common. It says if you take this number and you add it to this number, so we'll call that RA, and you add it to whatever TP is, if you average the 2 of those, it's going to give you what they call the mid-segment, which again is just you take the midpoint, like we had done with, I think, triangles, and if that's equal to that, and this is equal to this, you connect them, and that's the formula. So it's just like a triangle where you added the top, where you cut it in half, but this time, since we don't have a point, we just take this number, so whatever this is plus whatever this is divided by 2, and that will give you the pink line. Also, these are all parallel to each other, so they mentioned that as well. Okay, so that was a lot of facts about trapezoids. We'll do a couple practice problems. I'll do them fairly quickly, but you can pause the video if you need to. So they want to know what angle F is. If it was a parallelogram, we'd say 49, but this one's not. But we do know that whatever F is, it's the same as G. We do know that whatever H is, it's the same as 49, or as E. So 49 is the same as E. Then we know a quadrilateral adds to 360, so we can say 49 plus, these are both the same, so x plus H, which was 49, all adds up to 360. And then you could solve, I guess I'll go ahead and do that for you guys. 98 plus 2x equals 360. Subtract the 98 from both sides, and you get 2x equals, oh my brain, that'd be 262. And divide both sides by 2, and you get 131. You can also see, because they're same side interior, you can use that from last semester. 49 plus x equals 180. So either way works. In this case, this is when we had learned that LJ is the same as KM. So they said J to N, this portion is 10.6. And they said J to N. J to N is 10.6. And N to L is 14.8. So the whole thing of JL is those added together. So 10.6 plus 14.8. I do not have a calculator with me, so bear with me. 25.4. And so they asked for KM. Well, KM is this diagonal, and in an isosceles trapezoid, they are the same as each other. So JL is 25.4, so is KM. And that goes back to up here where they said, in an isosceles trapezoid, the diagonals are congruent. So this is that type where they said, okay, if we look for that mid segment, so this piece matches this piece matches this piece, so this is the midpoint, this cuts it in half. It said the top plus the bottom divided by 2, so 25 plus x divided by 2 is equal to the middle, which in our case is 16.5. So then we just have to do a little bit of algebra to solve. Multiply both sides by 2 to get those to cancel. 25 plus x is 33. Subtract 25, and x is equal to 8. So I just am going to go ahead and plug that in and just double check. 25 plus 8 is 33. 33 divided by 2 does indeed equal 16.5, so it works out. So EH, our answer is 8. Your homework will look a little bit like this. That's why I threw it in there. They wanted us to see, basically figure out what angle 1 is equal to. So I do know that this one and this one, it's not isosceles, so they're not necessarily the same, but this is same side interior. So we know that 40z plus 5 plus 10z has to equal 180. So that goes back to last semester when we said same side interior add to 180, because these lines are parallel. It's called a transversal. I don't know if you guys remember that. So I could solve this. 50z plus 5 is 180. Subtract that 5. I have 50z is 175. Divide both sides by 50. And z is equal to 3.5. Then I could plug it into here to solve. I could plug it into here to solve. I could plug it into here to solve. And then you'd finally get angle 1 by doing 360 minus whatever you got for the other 3. So that's just like a little helpful hint for homework. I'm going to keep going so that this video isn't crazy long. Don't forget, you can always pause or rewatch one of them. So we've talked about trapezoids. We're also going to look at kites. Kites have no parallel sides, but they're really just two isosceles triangles stacked on top of each other. So we've got that one and this one. And, looks like a kite from your childhood. Please tell me you've flown a kite. Super fun. So the rule with that is they said if it's a kite and you draw the diagonals through, just like a rhombus, this is going to meet at a right angle. You can kind of see then it's almost made up of 4 individual right triangles. And you can do anything that the right triangle rules apply to. So if it's a kite, the diagonals bisect at 90 degrees, just like a rhombus. So here's our chart again. We have a lot of different shapes. So in the quadrilateral, 4 sides, there's parallelograms. We had 4 rules with those. They were opposite sides are the same, opposite angles are the same, diagonals bisect each other, and the 4th one, oh, it's escaping me. Diagonals bisect, opposite sides are the same, opposite angles. Oh, and same side interior add to 180. That's the one I had forgotten. Then rectangle adds in the rules diagonals are congruent, and the right angles in all four angles are right angles. A rhombus adds that all sides are the same. The diagonals cross at a right angle, and the diagonals bisect the angles. And then a square fits all of those categories. We talked about trapezoids. The rule for trapezoids is that these 2 are parallel. And earlier they had said that any trapezoid where it has that mid segment, where it takes the midpoint, so any trapezoid, you take the mid segment, as long as that equals that and that equals that, the rule is the top plus the bottom divided by 2 equals the mid segment. So that's all there is to that. Then with isosceles trapezoid, just like a rectangle, those lines, those diagonals are congruent. And then the other thing is the base angles. So this angle matches this angle, and this one matches this one. Then we moved on to kites, and we saw it's basically 2 isosceles triangles put together. Those match and those match. And it said if you put your diagonals through, just like a rhombus, it met with a right angle in the middle. And then you've got 4 little right triangles, and you can do any Pythagorean theorem stuff with them or any right triangle stuff that we are learning and will learn. So that's kind of the gist of it. Here's one more set of practice problems. If you want to pause the video and try on your own and then check your answers, you can. If not, you can follow along with me. So it says in kite, so they tell us it's a kite, PQRS, the measure of angle PQR, that is 78 degrees. So we've got 78 degrees. And TRS is 59. So they want to know the measure of QRT, so I'll do that in pink. QRT is this angle, and they also want to know QPS is this whole angle, and PSR is this one. So we know in a kite that they meet in the middle at 90 degrees. So we can figure out, we've got this triangle in the corner, we can say the right angle plus that 59 that they gave us plus x equals 180. And we can solve that. We'd get 149 plus x is 180. And when we solve that, we should get that x is 31. Because these are the same, it's an isosceles, basically, and this is a right angle. This cuts it down the middle. So if that's 31, this is 31, and our answer for yellow should be double of 31, which is 62. So PSR was 62 degrees. Let's look back at our kite rules. Yeah, because we had this rule about it being a right, and that's how we could kind of solve for the missing piece. Then Once we have this one's 31, we know this one's going to have to also be 59. Oops, I'm running out of my colors. This is going to be 59 right here, but this one is not, because that's not, basically it's a shorter triangle on top. It's not a rhombus where it cuts it in half, so we're going to have to figure out what that one is right there. But we do know that little piece left of the blue and the pink are going to be exactly the same. So x plus 78, see this big triangle right here? That has to equal 180. So we'll say x plus 78 has to equal 180. If I combine like terms, subtract the 78, and I should get 102. Cut that in half, and I should get x is 51. So I know my pink answer now is 51. So that was QRT, that's 51. And so that means this piece over here is also 51. And I can finally get my blue answer, which was the 51 and the 59 together, which is 110. So that's what some of the actual math kind of problems will look like. We will look at this more later, but wanted to get you guys a jump start. Have a great day.